What's up? It's Robert from Existence First. And what I want to talk to you about today is the word dialect in the context of explaining and better understanding how the mind works, how our different thoughts, like the format and the shape of them, okay? Because there's like a structure to our thought. Now, the word dialect appears in a lot of different places. The word itself appears if you're talking about like, oh, there's a language like Chinese. It has a lot of different dialects because of the different parts, different areas of the country, because it's so large. People speak differently in different parts of the country. Okay, but the word dialect is also found in words like dialectical behavior therapy, in words like dialectic, which is a philosophy term. There's a philosopher named Hegel who talked about having two opposing or contradictory thoughts and then coming to a synthesis by bringing them together. So if you look up the root word of dialect, you'll find that it originates from this word meaning converse with. And so if you imagine two people talking, much like Hegel's, two ideas that kind of oppose each other, if you think about two people arguing like in a debate, ideally they're going to come to some sort of agreement. This also reminds me of the law of non-contradiction. So if you've ever studied formal logic, there's this law of non-contradiction, which states that you cannot have A and not A representing a variable, at the same time. So I can't, if your friend calls you and says, "Oh, hey, I'm here in California," and then you say, "Oh, cool, what part?" And then they say, "Haha, just kidding, I'm in Illinois." You say, well, which one is it? And they say both. Well, it can't be both because that would be a contradiction. You can't be in California and not in California at the same time. You can't have A and not A at the same time. So in any case, if you really think deeply about this, the human mind is constantly trying to resolve these apparent contradictions. And this is the format of every single attention-grabbing news headline that you'll see. Same thing I saw a lot in university when people would do these presentations and they would make some big deal about it of like, studies show that that people perform better on less sleep, right? On 5 hours of sleep. And you're like, what? That contradicts what I know, what I've always been told is that you need a full night's rest of 8 hours, right? Or to use an example from like news headlines, I'll just make something up, right? Studies show that vegetables are not good for you or something, right? So, and then you're like, what? I thought vegetables were good for me, right? And so it's this war of opposites, right? Now, if you also think about philosophy and how there's this concept called unity of opposites. One of my ex-girlfriends, her uncle, was really big into this, and he was really very intellectual, and I thought that was always such a cool thing, this concept of unity of opposites. So for instance, like you could have a family of four, right? A teenager and the parents. They live so closely together, proximity-wise, right? They occupy the same house, but they might not talk a lot, and so they might be very distant, psychologically, or they might have different values, right? You could share an apartment building with other people who have very, very different cultures, so you're very much close to them, yet physically, but culturally you're very, very far apart. And I've always liked to play around with this thought, right? Light, and then you look outside. Right now it's light outside here in California. Light implies darkness, right? Good implies bad, and then people like to say in self-help, you can't have good times without bad times, right? To help help people cope with bad times. And I guess there's some truth to that, but what I would like to get at is the underlayers of this, the structure of this, which is you catch the mind thinking in terms of this, or like, is this true or is it not true, right? Is it, and this and this constant seeking to resolve contradictions is very, very interesting, because sometimes there are not contradictions. Sometimes you need to have a little bit of like tension of these opposites, right? In salsa dancing, there's this spring move. It's called, where you're holding hands with your partner, and each of you kind of like lean back, but you're holding hands like this, right? So when each of you leans back, there's this like tension, and that allows you to spring back together and do this like change in place movement. And so it's a really fun move to do, right? But if you think about it, both of them, both partners are leaning away. So there's this tension. So they're leaning away, then there's this tension that then brings them back together, right? And then it's just really neat. And then you think about the universe, and the universe was supposedly expanding, and now it's contracting or something like that. And I don't know, I don't study that stuff. And then you have economies that expand and then contract, right? And and then you've got this coronavirus stuff. So then people are sheltered in, and then at some point people are going to go out again, and then breathing in, inhale in, expand the lungs, exhale, close the lungs, exhale the air out, right? There's this, there's almost like a rhythm to life or something, right? So if we start to see like this deeper structure to things, this is my thought here, is that if we can dissect the structure of things, then we can understand our minds much better. We can understand them as tools, right? Rather than being tormented by like, oh my gosh, everybody needs to stay inside now, or you know what I mean? It's if we understand this this tendency for there to be opposites, and for our mind to look for contradictions and to resolve those contradictions, that's I think some peace, some mental peace will come out of that. All right, those are my thoughts for now. If you have any reactions to this, you can comment below, and make sure that you also check out the Facebook and Instagram page for more frequent posts than the YouTube. Okay, I'll talk to you soon. In the meantime, think deeply and put your existence first.